77 yards. Whoa! Who is this kid?
Lester.
All right, guys, we are back with another episode. This is the second episode that my wife has done with me as of recently, and I'm very excited because she is actually motivated to come on and share a little bit more about what you know, what you've experienced, what we've experienced, what works great for us in business, what works great for us in marriage, what doesn't work well for us in those areas, and also parenting and self-leadership. My wife just finished 75 Hard about 2 weeks ago, and she finished it all the way through, never starting over once, and also didn't do any cheat meals on your 40th birthday. So, happy birthday. I honor you. You're amazing. Why are you mad? Because I keep mentioning your age?
The age thing, he just keeps telling everyone my age.
I know, but you look so good. Like, you don't even have makeup on. Like, you didn't
I don't.
You didn't do, and I say that to honor you because you look so pretty, and you didn't do anything to get ready for the show. For real.
No, for real.
That's why I like you the most, though.
Thanks.
You know, I like you because you could just have sweatpants on and just look real pretty.
Thanks.
So anyway, our last episode was on unity, and the reason it was on unity, aka getting on the same page, alignment, being equally yoked, is because it's a progression. So today we're going to talk to you about core values, how to develop them in partnership, in alignment. So there's not a my way or your way. It's how do we come to a place where it becomes our way? We're going to teach you how we've done that in this podcast episode. So before you start at core values, I think it's important that you start at the Unity podcast that we did last. So we'll make sure that we put that link in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, welcome to the jungle. This is my wife, Laura. She's beautiful. She just turned 40 a couple weeks ago.
Seriously, you're going to be 40 in just a couple months.
I know, baby. I'm giving a new definition to 40. We have 6 children together. Our son is in high school now. We're high school parents, dude. That is the coolest. Give me some.
It's really not that cool yet.
I think it's amazing because we're out of all the other parents. And if the other parents are watching this, I'm not hating on you. You look great. But we're the youngest and the coolest of all of them, for sure.
I haven't met all of them, but yeah.
We're the youngest and the coolest. Not
they
that
all
they're not
want to come
cool.
to our house. So
right. So we
I don't
like
know what that means.
That's because we're young.
What's that mean?
It's because Ace's dad has a rat tail, man, and they want to hang out at the rat tail house. So no, we have a high school kid, and then we have 2 sons, 4 daughters, and my son Ace is almost 15 years old. My daughter is almost 13 years old, and then Aurora is 10, and then we have Josie is 7. And then Golden is 4. And then King is 16 months now. Mm-hmm. He's 16 months. So that's the Weatherford tribe. And we're about to tell you the Weatherford way in this podcast episode, but I didn't pray yet. So let's do that real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Holy Spirit, we invite you into this podcast to we have notes and we have a direction of what we believe that we want to teach and share of our experiences on this podcast. But we just ask that your hand be on it and let your plans be our plans in Jesus' name. Amen.
I wanted to start something that I have been taught that always go back to is like the foundation. So even for your core values, like I think of it as a foundation, but something that my mentor teaches me is the foundation always has to come from the Bible. So when you go to do it, just make sure you're going back to that.
Give me some notes on for people that didn't listen to the last podcast episode that are about to go back and listen to it right now. Give them a couple high level points of what we discussed and why it was important. And then let's get into the importance of core values and what are they? Why are they important? And then how did the Weatherfords create theirs?
Right. So it was just unity. And so if you have unity in your core values, and it doesn't matter if you're in a business, if you're in a relationship, you're parenting, then everyone kind of has the foundation set. So you can go back to if you're not living in one of those ways, it's not like you did this. You don't have to get stuck in stories. Just was this the foundation of what we are? Is this the standard? Is this the values that we are instilling in our home, in our business, whatever it may be? And if you guys are in unity for what that is, it's pretty easy. You don't have to get into a huge giant fight about it.
Right. What were the three things it was in order to get on the same page? It was
Values.
get clear on what your values are and then what you agree your values will be. Right. And that's an important thing. It's not like, hey, it's not
Unity
that
on them, agreement.
it's
alignment.
not that I know what you value and you know what I value. That's not enough. We actually have to say, hey, when we come together, what are we going to agree that we're going to value together? So that was a really
And I
important
think
highlight.
that's one of the big mistakes that people do. Like people, and I mean, I'm so guilty of it. I want to be heard. Well, I want you to understand what my values are. I want you to know what's important to me. And you want me to know what's important to you. But if you don't bring it together, it seems so simple, but people don't do it very often.
Right.
It's like, I want to be able to trust you. I want stability. I want this. And you're like, well, I want this and I want this. Okay, well, that's great. Like neither person is wrong for what they
want or what they desire.
Right. But what do we value together that we come like together? We say, this is what we're going to do for our life. I think that's a missing piece.
That's good. Okay, well, I think we did a good job tying a bow on what last episode was about, and they can go listen to that and share that with people. Welcome to the show. If this is the first time you've listened to our podcast episode, let's talk about core values. What are core values and why are they important? Would you like me to go? All right. Well, the way that I see it is I lived a lot of my life on a lot of different missions. There's a thing that's called a Ronin in like the samurai Japanese area. And what a samurai is he's a masterless warrior. He's a masterless samurai, which means like he doesn't have a sensei or a leader to help develop him and to keep him on track or on target. And I believe that's what I was. Before I got core values and before I got a mentor that I really felt like, man, this is a mentor and a leader that I feel like is so fully submitted to God. And I feel like I could submit to him and allow him to lead me as my sensei in life, you know, and that's what, you know, you and I have budgeted a lot of my time to be is for me to be a sensei and a life coach and a mentor for a lot of high level entrepreneurial men. And so it's really cool for me to be able to be what I needed 5 years ago when Pastor Keith Craft came into my life and allowed me to get off of mission, because that's what a Ronin is. A Ronin is somebody who chooses what their mission is. And for me, it was like, man, let me choose to make the varsity team. Let me choose to, and then go on that mission, right? And let me choose to earn a scholarship to college. And that's right about when you entered my life. You know, I was 17 years old. You were at the University of Illinois. And that was one of my goals, one of my missions in life as a Ronin, right? Because God wasn't number one in my life. And I wasn't submitted to any one man that I would allow to help me make life decisions. And so I would go on the mission of earning that scholarship. And that's when I met you. And then, you know, what was my goal when you met me? The only thing I was obsessed with when you met me.
Going to the NFL.
Going to the NFL. That was it, right? And you were there from like part of the beginning of that. I remember my wife used to, you'll laugh when I say this. I used to stretch my hamstrings out when we were in bed. Remember that?
Yes.
Right?
Oh my God.
Like you've been on, not just on the mission with me, you've been in support of a lot of the different missions that I've been in life. Get to the NFL. And then once we got to the NFL, what do we want to do? We wanted to get the big contract. After we got the big contract, you know, me personally, I wanted to win some awards for philanthropy and, you know, become the fittest man in the NFL. And I was trying to fix that God-sized hole inside of me. I was creating all these missions for myself because I was trying to like earn my worthiness, right? Mm-hmm. That's who I feel like I'm speaking to on this podcast. If you're going through life with a whole bunch of goals, but you don't really know what your purpose is, you find yourself like up late at night, like, man, like just like restlessness and uneasiness. I believe that's who we're speaking to. Those are the people that don't actually, like, they're successful and they might have achieved some things, but they're wondering like, why don't I feel different? Well, it's because you actually haven't decided what it is that you value aside from winning and excellence, which those are our core values and we'll talk about here in a minute. But aside from those, you actually don't know what it is, the thing that you're working for. You just know you need more of something. So it wasn't until you and I got clear on what it is that you value away from me and what I value away from you. And then when we came together and you explained to me, hey, Steve, these are the things that I value.
Right.
And then and once you created them, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it's important for people to realize that there are different things that you value for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And so to put those all out there too. So when you're explaining them, like, I value this because maybe it's something that I feel like I'm really good at, or it's something that I want to be really good at.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. Do you want to talk about, do you feel like I did a good job of talking about what core values are, and why they're important? Because if you don't get clear on what's important to you, mm-hmm. you're just going to end up chasing a lot of different things. I think
a very direct way of saying it is just the core values are the foundation of like who you want to be and what you want to be in your circle. Yeah. Like when you say, I like this person, or man, you want to honor somebody, what is it that you honor about them? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, who are they that you respect them that much? Mm-hmm. And when you think about it like that, that's really what their core values are. Right. Like, at least when we talk about it.
Yeah. So about 4.5 years ago is when I got really, really, and you can correct me on the timeline, but I feel like 4.5 years ago is when I got really, really serious about leading myself, leading our family, really becoming a man of God, a man of principles and values and virtues and philosophies and standards. And so at that time, I picked some core values and I said, hey.
So you can stop right there. What'd you just say?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying.
I picked some core values.
And I want everybody to pay attention to the language because I'm using very intentional language. That's why I was very slow in saying it. Is I picked core values because I decided I'm leading my family wrong. Financially, I don't have a philosophy. I'm just good at making money. What's my philosophy for relationships? What's my philosophy for marriage? You know, like what are the different standards? And I realized I didn't have those. I was just like success on paper, right? Like my Wikipedia page looked great. And so once I decided that I wanted to start leading more intentionally, more strategically, I picked, notice the language, I picked core values. And then I brought those core values to my wife and I said, hey, these are our new core values. I'll pause right there and then I'm going to tag you in because this is the way that you don't want to do it, but it's a great way to fail forward. It's a great way for you to get momentum and for me to fail forward as a leader because I think you saw my heart was in the right place, but I wasn't making any space for your voice. Tag you and go.
So I think that was, I didn't buy in. So it was basically like, I'm telling you, this is what we're going to do for our family. Not like, hey, Laura, like I understand that for the last 10 years, I would just kind of let you have at it. Like raise our family how you see fit. And I'll just kind of fit in when I need to or want to. Mm-hmm. It became, and I mean, from my standpoint, like looking back on it, I was not in a brain space to even be able to like, I wasn't where I needed to be, you know, to hear that. However, it felt like almost like an attack. Like, here, you're not doing it right. We're going to do it this way. Mm-hmm. That's what I heard.
Like you're mismanaging the family business or the business.
Right.
I'm going to
come in and I'm going to step in. But also I didn't feel, not only was I not heard, I didn't accept them. You never said, hey babe, like, will you work with me so that this is what we can instill in the kids? It was like, and then the third part was, I didn't feel like you had been in a place where you even knew what we needed. Mm-hmm. So from that overarching standpoint, I was like, okay. And I didn't look at like the fact that you were just trying, right? Like you were starting somewhere. So that was where I got to grow, was that, okay, he's starting. Like I'm very thankful that he's starting to do this. I didn't feel that way.
So that was 4.5 years ago. And that's where we don't recommend that you start, but it is a start. Right. So, and let's fast forward couple more years. You know, you and I have been really
Well, and I think it's also just important to tell them that as we work through this, like it was a growth process. So I think people, like, it sounds so simple. Just write down your core values, get them on the same page. But it sounds simple. It's not, because
That's why we're doing a podcast episode,
like,
because I feel like this is where you start, right?
Right. Like, you can write them down. I just want you to also realize they don't need to be set in stone. And if you need to change them after 2 weeks, change them after 2 weeks. Be open and honest about that. Like, I think saying like, you know, we said this one's not working for me. Like, I think we need to go back to the drawing board, but it starts, like, always is start, just do it. But it's not as easy as what you necessarily think to put them into action.
Right. So, that's where we kind of, I, as a leader, made a mistake in just deciding what our core values were. And when I just decided them without asking you, what I'm hearing you say is, I felt like you just came over and took over the business and said, it's not running how I think it should run. This is how it's going to run moving forward. You didn't feel heard. You didn't feel seen, and kind of felt disrespected.
Right.
Initially. Right. Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Initially. That's I think it's a growth process. I wouldn't have felt that way now, but
right. Well, I think it's important for you to share what you were experiencing. So if there's some entrepreneurs,
well, there's a huge
husbands and wives,
there's a
relate.
huge, like, this is a whole nother podcast. I was not in a place to, like, even say what I wanted. So, or sure. When I felt like that, I didn't even say it. So, like, he wouldn't have known. I just want people to know it's not like he tried to steamroll me. He just, I also didn't speak up. So that's a different.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that. So I don't look like a real bully.
No, I didn't even say like, I don't like this.
I didn't take it that way. Thanks for saying that. So that was the way that we wouldn't recommend it. Let's explain to them the process that I initiated and you agreed to at the beginning of this year, and how this may or may not be the X factor. I actually think the X factor is maybe something different, but I believe this complements on this
is where you have to start.
Yeah, I believe this was the beginning of the best year of development and growth that I've seen in you in 20 years that we've been together has been this year. You know?
So sad. Yeah.
Babe, when I say something like that, why do you go, that's so sad? Why can't you put your arms up and be like, I am a Viking princess. I am a personal development beast.
I feel like I wasted a lot of time, but it's okay. Go on.
No, you didn't waste a lot of time. Like, what about if you're like 62 and you know people that are 62, 64, it still hasn't clicked for?
Right.
It's clicked for you.
Right.
Like, I'm proud of you. Thank you. So with that being said, what the X factor in the start of that was us having this meeting that we're going to explain the process of how we arrived at what the Weatherford Way is, our mission statement, our core values, and how people listening to this podcast in the next probably 5 minutes can be given the 1, 2, 3 of what they can do to build their podcast. And you'll also, one thing that you're doing right now after this episode is you're going to write a blog post. And so for people that don't want to listen to this 15 or 20 minute podcast and they're a reader like you,
right? They
don't care about getting to know us as friends. They just they want the black and the white.
Right.
My wife actually is going to write a blog post with a lot of the podcasts that we do, and to be able to appease those people.
All right, guys, I wanted to take a brief break from the show, and we're going to get back to our episode in just 1 minute, but I wanted to thank our sponsor, and I also wanted to tell you a little bit about them. About 8 years ago, I really got into biohacking. I really got into brain optimization, and if you didn't know, I'll tell you right now, I've got extreme ADHD. My son's got ADD, and he's got dyslexia, and so we actually went out to Costa Mesa, California to work with the CEO of this company. His name is Dr. Amen. He's the #1 brain specialist in the world. And after doing some brain mapping with him and learning a whole lot more about the world of biohacking through neurovitamins like this, and I learned so much, and I've actually had my family on a regimen of brain health supplements. And I want you to go over and check out brainmd.com, and you can save 15% at checkout using the word Weatherford 15. And you can get onto some supplements like tyrosine, like GABA, and they've also got some emotional support for anxiousness and things like that. So I really believe in this company. I really believe in Dr. Amen. He's been on this show, and you guys are going to love the supplements that he's created.
So how did this process start? How did I approach you and that made you open? Mm-hmm. I think that actually, let's do this in 5 minutes, but how was I as a leader? Because I think that's very important for the partners in business and for the the women in marriage.
Okay.
How does the man need to be in order for the partner or the spouse to be open to this discussion for him to lead them in that direction? And then what's the process?
Okay. I wrote those down so I don't forget them. So you came to me and you were just like, growth is one of our core values, like growth all the time. Like you will never stop growing. And if you stop growing, it's sad. we're in trouble. But
that drives you nuts about me, but you've joined me in that.
I'm joining you in it. And so there's never complacency. We're never going to stop there. So, when you sit down and you say, okay, we're growing, like, what is it that we want the next year to look like? What do we want the rest of our life to look like? And to come to the bigger vision of that. And so you actually asked me more that to begin with. Okay, what is it going to take for us to get there? And if you have a brain like mine where I prefer to, okay, I see the vision, then I'm like, oh yay, now I can checklist how to get there. So check one was, what do you have to be to get there? It's not so much what do you have to do.
Yeah,
Laura.
not like what needs to happen in the next 30 days. No, like what do I need to become in order to get that thing done?
So if I said, I want to run a half marathon, okay, what do you have to be to get that? You have to be disciplined. You have to be willing to do it. Like, that's just a start. So like, what do you want your life to look like? What do you have to be to get there? Write down what you have to be to get there. Make a list. It can be 5 things. It might be 20 things. It just depends on what you, like, who you are and where you're at. And then you did the same thing. So we did it separately. I wrote down my top things that I felt like I needed to be. And then I also wrote down the things that I needed you to be.
That's good.
Some of them are the same.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is I approached you and said, and jump in anytime if I'm mishearing you. I'm hearing you say, I came to you and said, hey, what does a dream life look like you for the next 12 months? And you rattled some things off. I wrote those things down. And the next question I asked you is, what kind of person do you need to become? And do I need to become in order for us to be able to live that life and do those things? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that's a pro tip for you men out there that are like, oh, where do I start? I think that was a great start, and it allowed us to get to where we're at right now. Now, where did the process go at that point once we identified what type of person you needed to become? Did you say, okay, what are those character traits that are going to be important to value in order to do that?
Well, we came together and we looked at yours and mine. And so if we both had them, we put them on another list, and then other ones that we identified as like, no, this one's really important to me, even if it wasn't on your list. And for us in our process, we looked at it as like, for me too, like what do I want to be as far as it might be something I'm not. It might be something that I'm working on, something that I'm struggling with, but like, I really don't want to be that anymore. So that became like a fearlessness. Like that was one of our core values, because I have fear, and that has been a limiting thing for my life and for our life. I don't want that in my kids. Right. So like that was super important, even though you don't have fear over much, and you wouldn't have thought about it that way. You also can see that.
But I feel like it's very important.
You feel like it's very,
I concur.
Right. And you don't want that to be passed on to our kids either. So that's how that one came to be, even though it wasn't on both of our lists. Some of them were on both of our lists, like growth, excellence, like those were there. So I think if you think about what other things are giftings, like you honor really well, but you also have seen honor help other people grow and have opened up opportunities and relationships for you just because it's something that's innate to you. So what is that giftings that you have? And then also, like, if you have a team, if you're a business, what do you want them to be? And for me, I mean, it's my kids. Like when I see them when they're older, like when I send Ace out somewhere, you always say, give them something to respect. Like when my text messages go off and it's parents from like the school, all I've ever had is, your son is so respectful. He can come to my house anytime. Like, so I know that the values that are being instilled in him are what we have been trying to do. So that's how I look at it. who I want to be, but also who I want them to be. And they're going to learn more by my actions than by my words.
It's really good. So thanks for sharing that. So what I'm hearing you say is you came up with a list of
I got
things
12.
that you needed to be in order to live your best life individually and together with me. And then I created a list that I needed to do the same. And then we said, what values do we share? And then we made a list of the values that we share. And then of those values, we had a conversation, and there was one or two that we added onto that list that we didn't actually come up with together. So it's not like, a one size fits all. You have to do it this way. We also had a discussion. We prayed about it. This wasn't something that was just totally in the natural, logical. We prayed about this because we wanted God's hand to be on this thing. And so the core values that we created, I think is a good time for us to share with everybody listening and watching right now, what our core values are, and then for us to give meaning to those core values. And then maybe you can tie a bow on anything that I miss with how they can begin this process with their self.
Okay.
Right. So I would say our core values, what I'll do is I'll go through our core values, I'll share our mission statement, and then I'll go back through our core values and give meaning to those. Do you think that's the best way?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So our core values as we created them, the Weatherford Way, I guess I'll share the mission statement with them first. We're the Weatherford family. We are a fearless and disciplined family that honors and grows always in all ways with a joyful spirit of excellence. So that's not something that we just created because it sounds cool. Even though it does, like,
my husband's a wordsmith, he can make things sound real cool.
No, it's not just because I'm a wordsmith, man. I feel like it's like that's the way that God wants us to do it.
But that's a gifting for you. You make things sound pretty.
Thank you. But I believe that's much more than just a statement for us. I believe that that's like a call to arms. I believe that that's a filter. I believe that that's a standard. I believe that that statement is also a philosophy of how a Weatherford is going to live their whole life. But I'll go through individually what the core values are. It's fearlessness, it's discipline, it's honor, it's growth, it's joy, and it's excellence. So there's 6 core values. The reason that we chose those 6 core values, and I'll go through them in the order of the mission statement, not in order of importance, but the first one is fearlessness. The reason that my wife and I chose fearlessness is we believe that when you receive Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, that you don't really die. Like, our body will expire. And I'm bummed out because God gave me this big, strong body that I've worked so hard to develop, Yes, but I know eventually, man, this thing's going to be gone, but I know my spirit's going to live forever. So I know that I can operate fearlessly. Plus, Jesus came and did what he did for us to be able to walk in that full freedom and that authority, right? As a prophet, a priest, a king, and the warrior in the earth. And so, like, that's not just for me, that's for my sons, that's for my daughters, that's for my wife. Like, he paid that price for all of us. So I can't be the only fearless, bold one. So that's the reason we chose fearlessness. And then discipline. The reason we chose discipline, I believe God has gifted each and every one of us. And a gift is like a gift underneath the Christmas tree, right? And there's wrapping around that gift underneath the Christmas tree. But I believe that discipline is the thing that actually takes the wrapping paper open so that gift can come out and it can bless people and it can grow, and that gift can become a skill, and that skill can become a career, and that career can bless people, right? But that doesn't happen without discipline. You've been with me since I've been a teenager, and you've seen the difference in between me and people that might have as much talent as me, but maybe they didn't have the discipline that I created in myself, and you saw them fail and maybe not achieve what we've achieved. And you may have seen people that are more disciplined than me achieve more. And my point is, you agree with me that discipline is important. It may be one area that, for you, it's not like a strong point, but you've changed that this year. You've been disciplined in so many areas that you've been relaxed as a mom, and a lot of moms give themselves permission to relax in some of the areas that you said no more this year. 6 kids, it doesn't matter. 4 businesses, it doesn't matter. My son wants me to go to all these basketball tournaments. I'm still going to get it in. So discipline's important. The next is honor and growth. And the reason we chose honor is actually our number one core value. When we honor well, everything works the way that God designed it to work. Think about it. When we honor our body, it works the way that God designed it to work. When I honor my marriage, this works the way that God designed it to work. When I honor God, my life works the way that God designed it to work. That's why we chose honor. And the reason we chose growth as a core value is like you and I can have all of the same core values. But if I value growth and you don't value growth, 5 years from now, my life is going to be drastically different because everything that I value, I also value growth in it. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's really important for you, not for you and I to just both value growth, because you value growth. That's why you like me. That's why you're attracted to me. You like change, right? But change is uncomfortable for you, but change leads to better. Right. So it's like, you're attracted to something that also gives you anxiety, right? But there's a reason that God put you with me. Yep. And the reason that we chose growth as a core value is all of the friends that you see us rolling with on social media or on YouTube, and any of the people that I build relationship with or even go to breakfast with, they have to value growth. If they don't value growth, I won't allow them to take up time in my life, because I know that that's not fertile soil. I know that they're not hungry. They're not thirsty for a next level. They're just thirsty for a good time. And so I just don't make space for people like that in my life, right? And so the last two core values.
You like to have a good time.
I do like to have a good time, but
while you're growing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like if I'm growing, it is a good time. So the last two core values, then I'll allow you to tie a bow on this and just give any pointers to people as they're creating their core values. I've just explained to you 4 of them, and these are the last 2. Mm-hmm. Joy and excellence. And the reason we chose joy is I've been on a lot of athletic teams, and I've won some championships, and I've never been around a great leader that wasn't joyful. Not one. And so if you want to be a winner, if you want to be successful, if you want to bring glory to the King of Kings, you can do it with a joyful heart, man. So the joy of the Lord my joy comes from the Lord. So, and then our last core value is excellence. Excellence is also a standard, and it's a filter for us. For every one of our core values, I have a scripture that I've attached to it, but Colossians 3:23 is what we've attached to excellence. Is whatever you do it as though you're doing it for the Lord. And the reason that's a filter and it's a standard is my kids know, my wife knows, and I know that we don't say yes to something that we don't think we can do as if we're doing it for the Lord. So it's a standard of how well you want to do something, but it's also a filter. If we can't do it as though we're doing it for the Lord, then we say no to that. And that's one of the things that I think for you and I allows us to not spin that many plates. Like we don't say yes to a lot of things unless you and I can really go, as hard as we can go. And that way I feel really good about what I'm doing, because what I'm doing, I know I'm doing it 150%, because I'm not saying yes to too many things, which was something that you and I, at least me, being a people pleaser, I really struggle with, because I want to make people happy. I want to move projects forward. But a lot of the times people will just eat your time up, and they don't really care about.
I never knew you consider yourself a people pleaser.
Oh, yeah. Why would I do the things that I do?
You've never called yourself that to me before.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm not now. I mean, I like to make people happy, right? When I say yes to things, think about like when I was younger and I was in the NFL. I used to say, yes, I'll show up at this event. Yes, I'll show up at that event. Because I knew when I showed up at that event, it would make more people show up, and it would make the event a little bit more successful or popular or whatever. And so I used to say yes to a lot of things because I knew they would be happy. And in my mind, like, I'm making a difference, but really I'm just being distracted instead of keeping the main thing. But at the time, I didn't know what the main thing was. So I just went on a whole bunch of little missions, and, then I get to the point where I'm like, man, I need to start leading my family better. It's time for freaking core values.
Yes, sir.
So how can people create those? Did I miss any gaps on our core values?
We can go back and just create, like, how to create them again.
Yeah.
So you separate, you do your own, what you value.
So like take a half an hour and you would go away and write down. Okay.
Based on who you like, what you value about yourself right now, what you think could be a gifting, areas of improvement, and what you want your team or family to look like.
Yeah. So when we married and agreed upon what our values were, they were values that individually were going to unlock us, that we have believed in, but also values that we wanted to see multiplied in our children.
Yes.
I want to see a radical level of boldness and courage in my children. In order for that to happen, guess what? We can't just pick a core values. We got to model these things on both sides, right? If we want to see a radical level of honor and growth and joy and excellence in our kids, guess what we have to do? Both of us have to example it the way that we're doing it right now. So,
and then come together.
Yeah.
Talk about them. Explain why they're important to you.
Yeah. Give meaning to them.
Yeah. And then come up with, of course, if you both have the same ones, those are usually like asterisk because yeah. And then we came up with some that maybe just talking through, like you would ask questions. You're a good facilitator. So you would ask questions.
I'm a good question asker.
Yeah. So that came up, like that's how we came up with joyfulness and fearlessness for us. Like you ask questions.
You never told me that you thought I'm a good question asker.
Yeah. You're really good at getting people's visions and stuff out.
Thanks. You know what Carney
Sometimes
told me in the car?
the words get stuck in my head.
Thanks for saying that. Carney, I asked Carney in the car the other day what she liked most about date nights because I had one with her last night. She goes, I just like it because you listen, not that you don't listen, but when you've got 5 people in the car, how much can you listen to anybody?
She always tells me to listen, but when she wants me to listen, it's because I've asked her to do something she doesn't want to do it, and she's trying to explain why she should have to do it.
Well, I think it's because I just ask
a lot of questions.
Well, I just ask questions that aren't related to her needing to do anything. Like,
right.
Your friend Karis, tell me about her. What's her favorite subject? Like really light left field questions.
Right.
And then I just listen, and then she'll just start talking about anything, but
yeah.
That's funny.
I like her friend.
Okay, cool. Well,
wait, hold on. Combine them.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And then once you agree to them, put them on your wall. Put them there. Put them everywhere that you can so that your kids can see them. You can see them.
Yeah, one thing that my wife does that's pretty cool is you take an expo, like a dry erase marker, and you write on your mirror different things to yourself, be it core values.
Things that I get to work on, things that even if it's a Bible verse or.
Yeah, maybe in closing, why don't you share with them the 2 words that you've had up there recently that you're working on, why you're working on them, and then let's close the show out. Honor
and encourage.
Why did you have those written on your mirror, and why is it important?
Because I know people say don't use the words, I don't know why, but I really don't know why. I'm just not a natural encourager. I don't think about it. And I don't need people to encourage me with words. So it's not on the forefront of my brain to do it. And so if it reminds me then to do that for you, for the kids, for the people around me, so that they know I appreciate them.
Yeah, we love you. You do a great job.
Thanks.
All right, friends. Well, I hope this was helpful. I hope this encouraged you. I hope this gave you clarity. If you watched this podcast episode and maybe they watched this episode and they felt like they were rooted in their marriage or in their business partnerships, but maybe this is revealing to them, man, I'm a little bit of a Ronin. I'm a little bit of, I've been going out here on the mission, and I need to get really clear on what I value and get really clear about what the purpose is. And when I say the purpose is giving men something to respect. And that's what core values do. Give men something to respect, and then give God something to work with. And I just don't know any men that I respect or any men that God could really, and I don't say this discrediting, God could use anybody, but the kind of guys that I feel like God would want to use are the guys that have core values, the guys that are consistent, the guys that have integrity, the businesses that have integrity. And this is one of the first steps that I believe I made as a leader to myself to be able to be a great leader to my family, is to get clear on what it is that I value, and then lead us in the discussion of what do we value. And so our family can be clear about what we're all about. So we are the Weatherfords. We're a fearless and disciplined family that honors and grows always, in all ways, with the joyful spirit of excellence. Bang, bang. Let's go. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Leave us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching this or listening to this on iTunes, hey, those reviews are very helpful as well, because the more reviews that we get, that means the more people that don't know us and haven't heard our story, they'll get to hear about us as well. And so we appreciate that, man. God bless you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and share this with somebody. God bless you.